Hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work, work. There you go. Hard work, work. Everybody doing it right. Hard work, work, work. That's what I say. Hard work, work, work. Earn what pay.
Hey everybody, Mark, Centerline Systems, and today we're going to talk about our G1 and G2 gear rolls. Now, I am going to keep this video short. I know in some of my other videos, I always say that, and then the video is like 20, 30 minutes. But we're going to keep this short for a couple of reasons. So with Big Spoon helping me, I'm able to go back and do a better job on some of the previous videos. So we're going to reshoot a lot of our old videos to include our TTP series. And so we'll do a more in-depth video regarding the G1 and the G2 and show you multiple setups, multiple configurations, talk about all kinds of different gear. So again, that can everything from emergency shelter, emergency fire, emergency signal, boo-boo kit, kid kit, get home kit, how it can be worn, because there's a lot of different little features. I don't know if we'll be able to do that, get the a 10x7 tarp in there and S-roll it and then show you how you can set up a shelter. We might just have to demonstrate. It just snowed again last night, so now we're back into the whole, now it's snow. So weather's not cooperating. We'll try to do it maybe inside, but if not, we'll just do it outside. And the other reason this is going to be a short video, because I'm already rambling a little bit, is because today's Veterans Day. So a big, huge shout out to all my brothers and sisters in arms, both past, present, and future. But this is the last thing I'm doing today. We're shooting this video, and then I'm going to go have a cigar, have a beer, and tell some tall tales with all my fellow, brothers and sisters. So, all right. Without further ado, on that note, we're going to jump right into it. So I got a G2 in front of me in Multicam Tropic. I got a G1 in Coyote Brown, and then I've got my personal G2 in Barn Red. Now, we don't have very many of these left. Barn Red is going off the website. But I guess just on that note, just to give you a color options, Barn Red is still available, and so is Wolf Gray. So I just had a couple customers who ordered both Mother Canteen carriers and G2s in Wolf Gray. Even though you don't see Wolf Gray on the website, just give me a call, right? Because we still do have some of the material, and I still got, so I can cut it. But on the website, we have three forms of multicam. We've got Multicam Classic, Multicam Black, and then, Multicam Tropic right here. We also have ATAX FGX. We have Woodland M81 camo. That's for all you veterans out there, your Cold War warriors. Remember the Woodland M81. And then in solid colors, we've got Ranger Green, Coyote Brown, Raven Black, and then as I mentioned, we still have some Barn Red and some Wolf Gray. So give me a call about that. All right, so now seriously, without further ado, we're gonna get into some of the nuts and bolts of this video. And I'm not gonna go into great detail, as I already said. We're gonna save that for a TTP video. But what I want to do here is I wanna give you a little background behind the products, show you the distinction between the G1 and the G2, give you just a few examples of some of the items that can fit in the different locations, and then that's really how we're gonna wrap it up right there. Oh, and then I'm gonna unpack mine just so you see how what I carry, because that's kind of just my work G2, right? So it's got all my work components that I like having with me every day. All right, so G1. A little inside baseball story. This was maybe the second product I made, or second or third, and I made it for myself. So I'm an avid bow hunter. I was out, this was years ago. Honestly, I'm not even sure. I'm trying to think of it. I think that was probably like 7 years ago when we first came up with the G1. We've only been in business 4 or 5 years. I actually was doing this before we even started the business. And I made it for myself because I was out bow hunting one day. I was harvesting a deer, and I was doing the field dressing, and it was a snowy, kind of muddy day like this, and I had gear all over the place. And I almost lost a really expensive knife. And I'm just like, okay, that's never going to happen again. So I just basically made this kit for me. And then somebody saw it. Hey, where'd you get that? Oh, I made it. Hey, make me one. And that's, again, I've already mentioned that. That's a little bit of how this company started. So, on the G1, the original intent was, I really was thinking about deer hunting. And I wanted something small and compact that could organize my items and I could throw it inside my rucksack. So in this main pocket, now this is 11 inches by 7, and I'm going to give you some other dimensions on the G2s, and these are pretty approximate because there's always room for expansion, so it's actually a little bit bigger, but if you put the wrong types of items in there, you might actually not have quite that much space. But basically 11 inches by 7 inches, And this is where I wanted to put my gloves, you know, because imagine, you know, field dressing a deer when it's like, you know, 30 or 40 degrees outside, you know, you kind of want to have, you know, different gloves, drag rope, and not to get gross, but there's some other tools that have to do with, like, you know, field dressing. So I carried all those larger items here, and then I had all my knives, and I also had another drag, a different type of drag rope that I had here. Now, this is still set up from when we just did the S-roll video. And you can see I've got these shock cord tie downs here, and that's how we put a bunch of cordage through here and S-rolled it. But you can do the same thing. Here, I'll just give you another kind of example. This could be knives. A couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I actually had a G1 wrapped up as a big shelter kit, and I had, you know, shelter that extended outside of the edges of it. It was a really large shelter. But you can put tent stakes in there, large shelter, larger items, and this grid is approximately 8 inches from the edge of the pocket to the end of the grid. That's about 8 inches of grid that you get to play with. So you got a lot of you know, real estate, as I like to call it, or, you know, surface area where you can put multiple items, put tons of cordage in there. You know, if you want to save this main pocket and not put your shelter in here, you could put your shelter in this grid and then secure it down, whether it's with shock cord, 550 cord, rubber bands. See our S-roll video if you got any questions on that, or tent stakes, you know, and longer items that can fit right here. Now, rolling this up and undoing it, and I'm going to actually go to these other ones, so I'm going to move this off to the side. So when you roll this up or you unroll it, it's pretty simple, and I'll actually use this one right here. So we always make this folded. We always take the end of our webbing, you know, and all of our webbing is burnt cut, and then we fold it over and we sew it. And the reason we do that on our side release buckles and our ladder locks is so if that comes loose, the webbing gets hung up and it won't go through the ladder lock or the side release buckle. But to open this up, all you have to do is just loosen this up, and it's the same thing to roll it up in reverse. You just loosen it up, slide the webbing to the outside, and you see what I just did. And now I can open this guy, right? And then to roll it back up, just do it in opposite, you know, and then just take your edges, you know, your webbing, come around the outside, and then tighten it, excuse me. And we'll go into this in greater detail when we do the TTP video, because you can see there's these little tie downs on the outside, and I'll explain what they can be used for. You got this drag handle on the outside. That should be pretty obvious. You can grab it out of a rucksack. You could hang it from a tree, open this up, and it, you know, spills out below you. Let's say you're using as a traveling hygiene kit or a field hygiene kit. You know, this is hanging off of a tree branch or on a hook on the back of a door. You open this up, rolls out, and then you can gain access to all the pockets. And then you got a nice big piece of actual Velcro, not a foreign made something that calls itself Velcro, just like we call Kleenex, and Q-tips, but it could be made by some other company. No joke, Velcro. And that's on the outside, so you can either, you know, put medical stuff, or you could put your cool guy patches, you know, name tape. You could put a patch on the outside to identify what type of kit it is. And like I said, we'll go over all that stuff in a different video. So G1, pretty down and dirty. It's a grid system with one large compartment, so you can put a lot more of those longer items in there. Now, the G2, it came about a few years ago. So this is about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I was assisting the Duluth Police Activities League. So it's the Duluth Police has this thing called DPAL, and it just works with local kids. And I was doing some, you know, real basic wilderness, you know, survival courses for them. I think I did it like 2 years in a row. But, you know, one year I had the G1 all packed up, and I'm like, you know what? I really just kind of wish I had a few more smaller pockets, because I wanted to be a little bit better organized when I was doing it. And then bam, voila, the G2 is born. So I guess if you're a little bit more anal, you know, Germanic, however you want to say it, and you just like, you know, you want more pockets, more organization, that's what you get out of the G2. So again, just slide that off to the outside, open it up. And I mentioned this is Multicam Tropic, right? So this is on the website. I'm going to do once more around around the world, around the table here, regarding the different size of pockets, what sizes they are. And I'm going to show you a few little items that can go in each of the different pockets to give you some examples. Then we're going to move over, and I'm going to just show you what I carry in mind. So the G2, it's just for if you want a little bit more organization, right? More pockets. So you have 4 pockets. So you've got the main pocket, which I already talked about, 11 by 7. You can get a 10 by 7 sil 9-line tarp in here, whether you stuff pack it or S-roll it. This may not show up. I maybe should have. Here, I'm going to grab the G1 real quickly. So if you want to get super organized, so that's what we get here, right? The G1 and the G2 is really just to really help you be more organized, right? So if you want to get organized, and here's an example of what can fit in the main pocket. This is our SSK, so yes, that is correct. It is a selfish, just a shameless plug of another product we make, which is a great small organizer, but that fits inside of the main pocket. So you could have organization inside of organization, right? So the SSK can fit in that main pocket, right, inside of the G1 or the G2. That's 11 by 7 is the dimension, so 11, 7. But now that's, honestly, that may be like the very first official G1 I ever made for myself. And you notice on the pocket flap, it didn't have this webbing here. So that's actually how they all come. So there's this webbing across the top of the pocket flap, and that's just pass through. And it just gives you an opportunity to put key rings or a carabiner or a tie off, you know, the free end or running end of your cordage if you've got something going on in the main pocket. That's on the top of the main pocket and what we call the middle pocket. And I'll get to that in a second. 11 by 7, so you can just imagine, you can get a lot of material inside here, you know, different size tarps, different type of gear, and I'll show you what I carry in mine in a second. Then you got these two smaller pockets, so you got the large, small, and you got the small, small. So the larger of the two is 6 inches, it's about 6 inches by 3 inches, and then the smaller one is about 4 inches by 3 inches. And so for the larger pocket, here's just a few examples. And as I said, we will really break this down in the TTP video, and I'll show you a bunch of different ways to do this. Or I shouldn't say ways. I'll give you some examples of how you could, you know, use it and what can fit in this pocket. So I'm just trying to give you some perspective. That's just a basic Chemlite. Here's a Yuko, one of the really large survival match containers. And then if you're going to use this as an emergency signal kit, for example, these are the two versions of smaller hand flares. So that 6x3, you can put a whole bunch of different items like that inside of that 6x3 pocket. Oh, I need to have a prop bin I can throw the stuff into. Then going down into the 4x3, this is really designed around, you know, that typical Altoids size survival tin. So whether it's, you know, an Altoids type of tin, here's a real Altoids tin. This is the new tins. We actually talked about this in a recent video. It's a smaller, more rectangular tin. But I was kind of messing around with this because this is new to me. And but I think you could, I know you can get 2 in here easily. You might be able to get 3. And if you put it this way, you can get 2 in there. And then but that would still give you room on the sides to put more items in there. But this is the size of a pocket that really takes that survival type of tin. And I'll show you a whole bunch of different items that fit in there when we do the TTP video. And then over on the medium-sized pocket, so this is still, it's the 11, but this is by a little over 4 right here. So again, it's expansion. Going back to the G1, this might be an area where you want to put your tent stakes. You maybe want to take other smaller items. So this is like a really good survival blanket, not the cheap ones. This is a really good survival blanket rolled up. You can see that would fit here, tent stakes. So, you know, if you're using the main pocket, let's say as a shelter kit, maybe you have your shelter in here, and then you want your tent stakes and your cordage over in the medium-sized pocket. I'm just going to throw that stuff off to the side. And that's the G2. Like I said, we'll cover a lot more detail, exactly what these little tabs, how you can use these tabs in a couple different configurations, from securing it around a tree, your waist, wearing this in extremis over your chest if you had to. We'll kind of do that stuff in the TTP video. And as you can see, just to shut it, as I said, and I didn't even loosen that up. I should have loosened it up just a little bit. I'm just rolling it up, and then I'm just bringing the webbing back over it and then securing it. All right, and then last but not least, just kind of as a parting example. So this is the G2 that I carry in my everyday bag, and this is more of a work-related thing for me. And so, you know, what's, you know, an interesting story, you're going to see here in a second, I've carried batteries in a pocket. And so, you know, I don't know how many people have the electronic code locks. Well, you know, most of those locks run off of a battery. And so a year ago, you know, I was with somebody and that lock was failing. Now, when that lock starts blinking, you actually probably have about, you know, 24, 48 hours before it actually dies on you. But this person's like, oh no, we don't, you know, my locks, it's not going to work anymore. The battery's done. I'm like, oh, I got some batteries. So we'll just put new batteries in. And they're like, you carry batteries around with you? I'm like, the person who needs batteries right now is giving me grief about actually having batteries with me, and it's not really, you know, breaking my back. You know, I'm like, yeah, okay, well, we don't have to put them in your door. Oh no, I take it back. So that's actually, you know, kind of the stuff I carry in my everyday bag. So just kind of open this up. So in my main compartment, and I've got a whole heck of a lot of room. I'm not even taken full advantage of this. But I carry a small, I don't know what you want to call it, kind of a notebooky thing, but that's got, you know, my thumb drives, my pointer, and a couple extra cordages that I use for other things. So just a little organizational pouch. And then I've got my external hard drive. So just a small little weirdness. I actually work off of 2 different computers. And so, you know, if I'm doing something updating it on one computer, I try to about every other week, you know, every 2 weeks, make sure both computers are on the same sheet of music. But if not, you know, my hard drive, my external hard drive is on the same sheet of music. So I'm not losing, you know, something about inventory or something about cost of goods or whatever business related thing. So an external hard drive travels with me everywhere. And this, there's a lot of companies that make these. This is an external power device. Now, mine's a little bit older. You know, this technology is really advanced, but this thing is super heavy duty. I do like it, and that's why I've kept it. It's probably a little bit heavier than some of the more modern ones, but don't quote me on this, but I think this is 2 computer, you know, like, you know, laptop recharges or notebooks, 4 phone. It's got a flashlight in here, a couple different adapters. So this thing is, and it holds a charge for a really long time. So I personally really like this, and I always carry that with me. Just because, you know, if I have to charge my phone or if I have to charge my laptop or whatever the case is, I want to be able to do that on the fly. And I actually have had to use that quite a bit. So, you know, just like, you know, other items, I'm probably in this G2 at least once a day, you know, maybe once every other day, but just like with my everyday organizer. And then, so here's the small, large compartment. So here, I just carry a Gerber tool. Gerber tool, Leatherman, whatever. These things, you know, again, that's another device that you're like, you use a whole heck of a lot more than you think you would once you have one. And I still have space in there for other items. And the small, I carry a emergency fire kit. You know, it might seem like a little overkill, but it is northern Minnesota. It can get cold. You drive off the road, you know, whatever the case is. I always want to have the ability to have a little fire kit. And then I've got, because Minnesota, I've got a set of hand warmers in there. So that's what I carry in my small. And then in my medium size pocket, this is a little different. This is where I have those batteries I just talked about. So I always got a 9-volt AA's, and then fish them out of here, AA's. So everything from smoke alarms to, you know, flashlights to, you know, smaller items that, you know, require AA's. Just what does it hurt, right? They last a long time and it doesn't hurt to carry them. Then I've got my charging cable for my phone, which I always like. And then this is just really kind of gross and thrown together, but it works. And it's just a big Ziploc bag, and it's just full of all kinds of 550 cord. I've got zip ties in here. I've got a couple small lights. I've got a few Sharpie type of markers in here, because it's just another thing. You're like, you know, hey, do you have a pen? And you're like, oh, you suddenly don't have a pen. But if I have this with me, then I always have a pen. So that's just a real basic, you know, kind of what I carry inside of the G2 here. Actually, let me just put this back together while we're talking, and then I'll just wrap it back up so you can kind of see that. And as I mentioned, we'll do all this in greater detail during the TTP video. Whoop, getting a little crazy there. You just kind of slide that whole guy in there. Boom. Put that guy. Put him in. I like putting him in sideways. You know, and that's the fun about gear, is messing around with it and figuring out how you like to do it better. And that kind of folds up just like that. Pretty nice. Bring that around. Secure it. And voila. And then I just throw that right back in the rucksack. So that really kind of does it. Again, we'll do a longer video on this, hopefully, you know, a lot more entertaining, but definitely a lot more informative, with a whole bunch of different types of pieces of gear that can go in all those pockets, you know, get those creative juices going. But until then, you know the deal. If you ever have questions, comments, reach out anytime, phone call, email, emoticon, direct message. Some of those I'm not the best at, but I will get back in touch with you. And then as a final parting word, again, to all my brothers and sisters in arms, past, present, and future, happy Veterans Day. And I think on that note, let's go have a beer and a cigar. You guys be good. All right. Woo!
Hard work.